Harper Clark had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. She stood motionless against the marble column, her champagne glass warm in her palm, watching the ballroom spin with laughter and light that never quite reached her corner. The Sinclair Foundation Gala was everything she wasn't. Polished, expensive, effortlessly elegant. Crystal chandeliers threw golden patterns across designer gowns while conversations hummed with the casual confidence of people who knew they mattered. She didn't belong here. The realization pressed against her ribs like a physical weight. "You need to network," Jess had insisted that morning, waving the embossed invitation like a golden ticket. "My cousin can't go, and these cost $2,000. You've been hiding since Jason. It's been 6 months, Harper. 6 months. 6 months since she'd discovered her fiancé had been leading a double life. 6 months of double shifts at Marcello's just to cover rent on her shoebox apartment. 6 months of feeling like a ghost, translucent and forgettable. Tonight merely confirmed what she already knew. She could stand in a room full of people and still be completely alone. The black dress had seemed perfect in her apartment's dim lighting. Now, under the unforgiving brilliance of chandeliers, she could see every thread where it didn't quite lay right. Every place where it screamed sale rack instead of custom fitted. Around her, women dripped in jewels that probably cost more than her yearly salary, their skin glowing with the kind of care that came from spa memberships and personal trainers. Harper took a sip of champagne that had gone flat, grimacing at the bitter taste. Jess had vanished 30 minutes after arrival, swept away by some hedge fund manager with perfect teeth and a watch that cost more than a car. So much for moral support. She was searching for an exit when the atmosphere changed. It was subtle at first, a ripple in conversation, heads turning like flowers tracking the sun. Then the crowd near the entrance parted, and Harper forgot how to breathe. Marco DeLuca moved through the room like he owned it. And maybe he did. The DeLuca family's reach extended through the city like roots through soil. Nightclubs, restaurants, real estate, and darker things people whispered about after too much wine. He wore a midnight blue suit that fit him like it had been created specifically for his body, which it probably had. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, lips that suggested both cruelty and pleasure. But it was his eyes that made Harper's pulse stutter. Even from across the ballroom, she could feel their weight. Dark as espresso, assessing everything with predatory precision. 3 men flanked him, their bulk poorly disguised by expensive suits. Security, the kind that carried guns and knew how to use them. Marco acknowledged greetings with minimal nods, declined conversations with barely perceptible headshakes. He was searching for something. Someone. "That's Marco DeLuca," a woman near Harper whispered to her companion. "I heard he's been out of the country for months. Business in Sicily." "They say he's even more dangerous than his father was," her friend replied, the last word dropping to barely audible. "After what happened to the Castellano family." "Shh, don't. You don't talk about that. Not here." Harper's curiosity flared despite her better judgment. What happened to the Castellano family? But before she could process the question, Marco's gaze swept across the ballroom and landed directly on her. Time crystallized. The room's noise faded to white static. His eyes held hers with an intensity that felt physical, like hands gripping her shoulders. Harper's breath caught in her throat. For 3 heartbeats, 4, 5. They stared at each other across the crowded space. Then common sense crashed back. Men like Marco DeLuca didn't notice women like her. It was a coincidence, a trick of the light. Harper tore her gaze away, pressing harder against the column, willing herself to become part of the architecture. She needed to leave. Now. Before she did something embarrassing, like continue staring at a man so far out of her league, he might as well be a different species. Harper pushed off the wall, moving toward where she'd last seen Jess. The crowd pressed close, forcing her to navigate between conversations and gesticulating hands. She was focused on not spilling her champagne when she collided with something solid. The server never stood a chance. The silver tray went airborne, spinning in a graceful arc before crashing to the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. Tiny pastries exploded outward in a perfect radius. Champagne glasses shattered. The crash echoed through the ballroom, silencing conversations in expanding waves. Every eye in the room turned toward her. Harper's face ignited with heat. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, dropping to her knees in her too-tight dress. Her hands shook as she gathered ruined hors d'oeuvres, desperately trying to clean up the disaster. "I'm so sorry." The server muttered something in rapid Italian that definitely wasn't kind. Harper's eyes burned with mortification. This was exactly why she didn't belong at events like this. In a world of grace and poise, she was all sharp angles and catastrophes. "Miss, please, I'll handle it," the server hissed, clearly wanting her to disappear. Harper reached for a crushed pastry and found herself staring at a pair of shoes. Not just shoes. Italian leather that probably cost more than her monthly rent, polished to a mirror shine. Her gaze traveled upward. Perfectly tailored trousers, a jacket that draped like water, broad shoulders, and finally the face she'd been watching from across the room. Marco DeLuca stood over her, and up close he was devastating. The photos and newspapers didn't capture the raw magnetism, the sense of barely leashed power. His eyes weren't just dark, they were infinite, like looking into deep water and knowing you'd drown. A hint of stubble shadowed his jaw, somehow making him look both civilized and savage. "Are you hurt?" His voice was deeper than she'd imagined, textured with the ghost of an accent that turned each word into something deliberate. Harper opened her mouth. Nothing came out. One of his security men moved forward, hand extended, but Marco stopped him with the smallest gesture. Instead, he reached down himself. His hand engulfed hers, warm and strong, pulling her effortlessly to her feet. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm, sparking in her chest. "I'm fine," Harper finally managed, her voice emerging breathless and strange. "Just clumsy. Sorry for the disruption." His lips curved slightly. No disruption. The words felt weighted with meaning she couldn't quite grasp. He still held her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture that felt far too intimate for strangers. "You've been standing alone all evening?" It wasn't a question. Harper blinked in surprise. "How would you—" "I notice things." His gaze traveled slowly over her face, like he was memorizing every detail. Beautiful women who should be surrounded but instead hide in corners. That interests me. A startled laugh escaped her. "Then you definitely have me confused with someone else." "I'm never confused about what I see." He stepped closer, invading her space in a way that should have felt threatening but instead felt magnetic. "Dance with me." It wasn't a request. Harper's heart hammered against her ribs. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because people are staring." "Let them." His smile deepened, revealing a dimple that transformed his face from merely handsome to absolutely lethal. "Dance with me, Harper." The sound of her name in his mouth jolted through her. "How do you know my name?" Instead of answering, Marco placed his hand on the small of her back and guided her toward the dance floor. Harper knew she should resist, should demand answers, should run. But the gentle pressure of his palm, the absolute certainty in his movement, made resistance feel impossible. The orchestra shifted to something slow and melancholy. Other couples moved aside as they reached the center of the floor, creating space like they recognized royalty. Marco turned to face her, one hand still on her back, the other taking her hand in his. The position pressed them close enough that Harper could feel heat radiating from his body. "I don't dance very well," she warned, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then follow my lead." And somehow, she did. Her usual awkwardness melted away as he guided her through the steps. His body was solid and warm against hers, his movements confident and sure. The scent of him surrounded her. Sandalwood and something darker. Something uniquely him that made her want to lean closer and breathe deeper. "You going to tell me how you know my name?" Harper asked, finding courage in the rhythm of their movement. His eyes met hers, and she had the unsettling feeling he could see past every defense she'd ever built. "I make it my business to know things. Harper Clark, 27, graduated top of your class in culinary arts, currently wasting your considerable talent at Marcello's downtown. He paused, his hand pressing more firmly against her back. Your ex-fiancé was an idiot who didn't deserve you. A chill ran through her, despite the warmth of his body. That's disturbing, is it? He spun her out and then back into his arms, closer than before, her chest pressed against his. Or is it flattering that someone has finally noticed your value when so many others have failed to see it? Harper searched for words, but her brain had short-circuited. The way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room, like she mattered, was more intoxicating than any champagne. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why not you?" he countered, his voice equally soft. "You're different, real. In a room full of performances, you're genuine. Do you know how rare that is?" The music swelled around them, but it seemed distant now, as if they were enclosed in their own private world. His hand on her back pressed slightly firmer, possessively, drawing her impossibly closer. "After tonight," he said, his lips near her ear, "everything changes for you, if you let it." Warning bells sounded in the back of Harper's mind. This man was dangerous. Not just because of his reputation, but because of how he made her feel, seen, significant, desired. After 6 months of invisibility, those feelings were more intoxicating than any drug. "And if I don't want things to change?" she challenged, even as her body betrayed her, melting further into his embrace. His smile was slow, confident. "You do. I can feel it." His hand slid from her back to her waist, fingers splaying possessively. "Besides, it's already too late." The music ended, but he didn't release her immediately. Around them, people watched openly now, whispering behind their hands. Harper spotted Jess across the room, her eyes wide with shock and something like fear. "I should go," Harper said, reality intruding on the spell. "Should you?" Marco finally loosened his hold, but kept his hand on her waist. "Or should you stay and see what happens next?" Before Harper could answer, one of his security men appeared, leaning close to whisper urgently in Marco's ear. She watched his expression change, the warmth vanishing behind a mask of cold authority that made her take an involuntary step back. "I have to go," he said, already pulling away. "Business that can't wait. Marco, Franco will drive you home." His tone had shifted, softer but with steel beneath. He signaled to one of his men. "Don't leave your apartment tonight. Keep everything locked." Fear crept up her spine. "What's happening?" Something softened briefly in his expression. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face with surprising gentleness. "Nothing for you to worry about. Just be safe for me." He pressed something into her hand, a heavy card, and then he was gone, moving through the crowd with his men flanking him, leaving Harper standing alone in the middle of the dance floor. She looked down at what he'd given her. A business card, heavy stock, with just a phone number embossed in gold. No name, no title, just a number and an implicit promise. Jess materialized at her side, breathless. "Harper, what the hell? Do you know who that was?" Harper nodded slowly, her fingertips tracing the embossed number. Marco De Luca. Not just Marco De Luca. The Marco De Luca. His family practically owns half the city. "Harper, they say he's—" Jess lowered her voice to barely audible. "Dangerous. Like, really dangerous." Harper looked toward the exit where he'd disappeared, still feeling the ghost of his touch on her skin, the warmth of his breath against her ear. "I know," she whispered, clutching the card tighter. And that was exactly what terrified her. Not just who he was or what he was capable of, but the fact that despite everything, despite the warnings, the reputation, the obvious danger, all she wanted was to see him again. As Jess bombarded her with questions, Harper's gaze drifted to where Franco stood waiting, his expression impassive but watchful. The weight of Marco's parting words settled over her like a cloak. Keep everything locked. What exactly had she stumbled into with one clumsy collision and a single dance? And why did the danger feel less like a warning and more like an invitation? Franco approached, gesturing toward the exit. Harper followed, the business card clutched in her palm like a secret, like a promise, like the beginning of something that would either save her or destroy her. She just didn't know which yet. Harper didn't sleep. How could she, knowing Franco stood outside her door like a sentinel? Every creak of the old building made her jump. Every distant siren had her pacing to the window. She'd triple-checked the locks, just as Marco had instructed, then checked them again because the first 3 times suddenly felt insufficient. The business card sat on her nightstand, catching streetlight from the window. Just a number. No explanation. No promise of when he'd call or if he'd call. Just that command, keep everything locked, delivered with an intensity that suggested real danger, not paranoia. At 3 a.m., Harper made coffee she didn't need, her hands shaking as she poured. The sapphire dress felt like someone else's skin now, so she'd changed into worn pajamas and an oversized sweater, needing the comfort of familiar things. But even surrounded by her modest belongings, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had tilted on its axis. Marco DeLuca had danced with her, had known her name, her history, details about her life she hadn't shared with anyone, had looked at her like she was precious, had stationed an armed guard outside her apartment. By dawn, exhaustion pressed behind her eyes, but her mind refused to quiet. She showered, dressed for her lunch shift at Marcello's, and opened her door to find Franco exactly where she'd left him. He looked alert despite the all-night vigil, his suit still crisp, his eyes scanning the hallway with professional efficiency. "You didn't sleep," Harper said. "It wasn't a question. Sleep is optional. Your safety isn't." Franco's expression remained neutral. "Mr. DeLuca wanted me to ensure nothing disturbed your night." The formality felt surreal. "Nothing disturbed it except knowing you were out here." Something that might have been amusement flickered in Franco's eyes, but he said nothing, just followed her down 3 flights of stairs and onto the street where morning light painted everything ordinary and safe. The sleek black car from last night waited at the curb, completely out of place in her working-class neighborhood. "I can take the subway to work," Harper protested. "Mr. DeLuca would prefer I drive you." "Mr. DeLuca doesn't get to control my commute." Franco opened the rear door, his expression unchanged. Nevertheless, Harper wanted to argue, to assert some independence, but exhaustion won. She slid into the leather interior, and Franco drove her to Marcello's in silence. When they arrived, he got out first, scanning the street before allowing her to exit, a ritual that made her stomach twist with anxiety. What exactly was Marco protecting her from? The restaurant's familiar chaos usually centered her, the clash of pans, Chef Romano's shouted instructions, the precise choreography of a kitchen in service. But today Harper couldn't focus. She burned a risotto, oversalted a sauce, earned Romano's withering glare twice before the lunch rush even began. "Harper, you're distracted," Sophie, one of the other line cooks, whispered during a brief lull. "Everything okay?" "Fine, just tired." Sophie raised an eyebrow but didn't push. They'd worked together for 2 years. Long enough to read each other's moods. And Harper's mood today screamed something happened, even if she couldn't explain what. She was plating a brodetto when Sophie appeared again, her eyes unnaturally wide. "Harper, there's someone asking for you out front." Harper's knife stilled mid-cut. "Who?" Didn't give a last name, just said Marco. Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. "He's at table 7 with 2 scary-looking guys and Harper. He's gorgeous. Like, illegally gorgeous." The knife clattered against the cutting board. Harper's pulse kicked into overdrive. "Tell him I'm working. I can't just leave the line." "Already told him that. He said he's happy to wait, but he'd prefer to see you now." "And Harper?" Sophie grabbed her arm. "Chef Romano already said it's fine. Told you to take your time." That stopped Harper cold. Chef Romano, who screamed at sous chefs for taking unauthorized bathroom breaks, who ran his kitchen like a military operation, had given her permission to leave the line during lunch service. What had Marco said to him? Harper untied her apron with trembling fingers, checked her reflection in the polished steel refrigerator, face flushed from kitchen heat, hair escaping its bun in damp tendrils, and walked through the swinging doors into the dining room. The lunch crowd hummed with conversation. Business people on expense accounts, tourists who'd read about Marcello's in guidebooks. But Harper's attention zeroed in on table 7 immediately. Marco sat facing the door, as if he'd been watching for her appearance. He wore dark jeans today and a black shirt with sleeves rolled to reveal tanned forearms. More casual than last night, but no less commanding. 2 men flanked a nearby table, pretending to study menus while their eyes constantly scanned the room. When Marco saw her, his expression transformed. The cool assessment melted into something warmer, hungrier. He didn't wave or call out. He simply watched her approach, his gaze never leaving hers, and Harper felt stripped bare by that look. "Mr. DeLuca," she said when she reached his table, hyper-aware of curious glances from nearby diners. "Sophie said you asked for me." "Marco," he corrected, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. "Please, sit." "I'm working. I've cleared it with your chef. Please, Harper, just for a moment." Reluctantly, she sat, keeping her spine straight, hands folded in her lap. Up close, she could see faint shadows under his eyes, suggesting he'd slept as poorly as she had. But exhaustion only made him more attractive, vulnerable in a way that felt dangerous to notice. "How did you sleep?" he asked. The mundane question caught her off guard. "Fine," she lied. His smile said he knew it was a lie. No unexpected visitors, no disturbances. Only knowing your guard was standing outside my door all night. Franco was there for your protection. Protection from what? Harper leaned forward, keeping her voice low. "You scared me last night, Marco. The way you left, the warnings about locking doors. What's happening?" Something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or calculation. "Nothing you need to worry about. Just precautions." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you right now." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. The contact sent electricity sparking up her arm. "I came here for a different reason. To see you. And to invite you to dinner tomorrow night." Harper stared at him. "Dinner?" "Yes. The meal people typically enjoy in the evening." That dimple appeared, devastating in its effect. "I'd like to take you somewhere special." Every rational part of her brain screamed refusal. This man had investigated her, stationed guards at her door, clearly operated in a world of violence and danger. Getting closer to him was monumentally stupid. But he was looking at her like she mattered. Like she was worth pursuing, worth protecting, worth his considerable attention. And after 6 months of feeling invisible, that look was more intoxicating than anything she'd ever experienced. "Why me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "You could have anyone, Marco. Why a line cook with student debt and a shoebox apartment?" His fingers tightened on hers. "Because you're real. Because when I look at you, you don't see dollar signs or power plays. You just see a man." He paused, his thumb tracing patterns on her skin. "Do you know how rare that is in my world?" "I don't know anything about your world. Perhaps that's another reason I find you fascinating." His gaze intensified. "Say yes, Harper. Let me show you something beautiful." She should refuse, should extract herself from whatever this was before it pulled her under. But his touch was warm, and his eyes held promises of things she'd stopped letting herself want. "Yes," she whispered. His smile was triumphant, predatory, and somehow tender all at once. "Good. I'll send a car for you at 7. He released her hand to slide a small package across the table. Black velvet box tied with silver ribbon. "Wear this." Harper stared at the box like it might explode. "Marco, open it later, when you're alone." He stood, buttoning his jacket with fluid grace. "Until tomorrow, Harper." And then he was gone, his security falling into step around him, leaving Harper sitting at table 7 with the velvet box in her hands and her heart hammering against her ribs. She returned to the kitchen in a daze. Chef Romano said nothing about her extended absence. In fact, he seemed almost deferential, which was so out of character it sent fresh anxiety spiraling through her chest. What had Marco said to him? What influence did he wield that even Romano, who terrorized everyone, treated her differently now? The rest of her shift crawled by. Harper went through the motions on autopilot, her mind spinning with questions. Finally, mercifully, her shift ended. She changed out of her chef's whites, tucked the velvet box into her bag, and stepped out into late afternoon sunshine. Franco waited at the curb. "I can get home by myself," Harper said, but there was no conviction in it anymore. "Mr. DeLuca insists." Franco opened the car door. During the drive home, Harper pulled out the velvet box. Her fingers trembled as she untied the ribbon. Inside, nestled on black silk, lay a sapphire pendant that seemed to capture light and hold it prisoner. The stone was deep blue, almost purple, the size of her thumbnail and surrounded by tiny diamonds. Even Harper, who knew nothing about jewelry, could tell it was worth a fortune. A small card underneath read, "To match your eyes. M." Her breath caught. The necklace was exquisite, the kind of thing she'd only seen in magazine spreads or museum exhibits. Accepting it would mean something, acknowledgement of whatever was developing between them. A step into his world. Franco pulled up to her building. "I'll be here tonight, Miss Clark, same as yesterday. Is that really necessary?" His expression remained neutral. "Mr. DeLuca believes so." Inside her apartment, Harper set the necklace on her coffee table and stared at it until the light faded and street lamps flickered on outside. The sapphire seemed to glow in the dimness, mesmerizing and dangerous. Her phone rang at 9 p.m., unknown number. Harper's hand shook as she answered. "Hello? Did you like it?" Marco's voice was low, intimate, wrapping around her like silk in the darkness. Harper's mouth went dry. "It's beautiful, but I can't accept something like this." "Why not?" "Because it's too expensive, too meaningful for someone I just met." His laugh was soft, genuinely amused. "It's a necklace, Harper, not a proposal, and it's nowhere near the value of what I intend to give you." A shiver ran through her. "What does that mean?" "It means I see your potential even if you don't yet. It means I want to know you better. It means tomorrow night is just the beginning." "Beginning of what?" "That depends on you." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "How much are you willing to let me show you?" Harper's breath came faster. "I don't understand what's happening here. Why the guards? Why the expensive gifts? What do you want from me?" "I want you to trust me." The simple statement carried unexpected weight. "I know I'm asking a lot, but Harper, I promise you, whatever danger exists in my world, it won't touch you. I'll make certain of that." "You can't promise that." "Yes," he said softly. "I can, and I will." Silence stretched between them. Harper could hear faint background noise on his end. Voices, maybe music. He was somewhere else, doing whatever it was dangerous men did at night. And yet he'd called her. "Are your doors locked?" he asked suddenly. The shift in topic startled her. "Yes, but Marco." "Good, keep them that way. Franco is outside. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call this number immediately. Do you understand?" Fear crept back. "You're scaring me." "That's not my intention." His voice softened. "I just need to know you're safe. That's all that matters to me right now." "Why?" The question hung in the air for several heartbeats. When Marco finally answered, his voice carried an honesty that made her chest tight. "Because from the moment I saw you standing alone in that ballroom, I knew you were different, special, and I protect what's mine, Harper. Always. I'm not yours. Not yet." The confidence in those two words sent heat pooling in her stomach. "But you will be. If you let yourself." Harper wanted to argue, to assert her independence, to resist the gravitational pull of his certainty. But something in his voice, possession mixed with tenderness, made her want to surrender to whatever this was. "I should go," she whispered. "Sleep well, Harper. Dream of tomorrow." The line went dead. Harper sat in the darkness, the sapphire pendant catching streetlight from her window. Marco's words echoing in her mind. "I protect what's mine. Always." She should be terrified, should recognize the danger in his possessiveness, his control, his obvious involvement in illegal activities. But instead she felt something else entirely. Wanted, protected, seen. For the first time in 6 months, maybe longer, Harper felt like she mattered to someone. And that feeling, dangerous as it was, felt too good to walk away from. She picked up the sapphire necklace, watching light dance through its depths. Tomorrow night. Whatever came next, she would face it with open eyes. And maybe, just maybe, discover what it meant to be claimed by a man like Marco DeLuca. Outside her window, Franco maintained his vigil. Harper locked her bedroom door, clutched the necklace to her chest, and finally slept. Her dreams were full of dark eyes and dangerous promises, and she woke wanting more. Saturday arrived with Harper's nerves stretched taut as piano wire. She'd spent the day in a fog of anticipation and dread, changing outfits a dozen times before settling on a simple navy dress, elegant without trying too hard. At 6:30, she finally clasped the sapphire necklace around her throat. The stone settled at her collarbone, cool and heavy, a tangible reminder of the man who'd given it to her. At precisely 7, her buzzer rang. Harper expected Franco. Instead, when she opened the door, Marco himself stood there, a bouquet of white roses in one hand. He wore a black suit with no tie, the top buttons of his charcoal shirt undone, revealing a glimpse of tanned skin. His eyes traveled from her face to the necklace, then lower, taking in the dress before returning to meet her gaze. "Perfect," he murmured, stepping forward to hand her the roses. His scent enveloped her, sandalwood and something darker. "You're stunning, Harper. I didn't expect you to come yourself." His smile held an edge. "For you, I make exceptions." He watched as she put the roses in water, his presence filling her small apartment. "You live alone." "Since my ex and I split." She hesitated. "How did you know about the cheating?" "I make it my business to know things about people who interest me." He moved closer. "He was a fool. Anyone who had you and didn't treasure it deserves to lose everything." The vehemence in his voice should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent dark pleasure through her veins. "We should go," Harper said, her voice unsteady. "Before what?" "Before I lose my nerve." His smile was slow, knowing. "We wouldn't want that." He offered his arm. Outside, a Bentley waited, Franco at the wheel. As they pulled away, Harper watched her building disappear, feeling like she was leaving more than just her apartment behind. They drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city for winding coastal roads. Marco sat close, his thigh occasionally brushing hers on curves. Each casual touch sent electricity through her. Classical music played softly, something Italian and melancholy. "Where are we going?" Harper finally asked. "Somewhere private, where we won't be interrupted." His hand found hers, fingers interlacing. "Are you nervous?" "Should I be?" "Not with me. Never with me." Eventually they turned down a lane bordered by ancient oaks, branches forming a canopy overhead. At the end stood a cliffside villa, white stone glowing against the darkening sky. Lights illuminated terraced gardens that seemed to spill toward the sea. "Is this yours?" Harper breathed. "One of my properties. I prefer it for special occasions." His hand settled possessively at her back as they approached. The doors opened before they arrived, revealing an older man in an immaculate suit. "Good evening, Mr. DeLuca. Everything is prepared." "Thank you, Joseph." Inside, marble floors gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers. But Marco didn't pause, leading her through to glass doors opening onto a terrace. Harper stopped breathing. The space had been transformed into something from a dream. A table set for two, surrounded by hundreds of candles flickering in the ocean breeze. White roses spilled from crystal vases. The terrace overlooked the sea, waves crashing against cliffs below, the horizon a distant line where black water met star-scattered sky. "This is..." Words failed her. "Too much?" Marco watched her carefully. She shook her head. "Beautiful, like a fantasy. That's what I wanted to give you tonight. A fantasy." He pulled out her chair. As she sat, Harper noticed they were completely alone. No security visible, though she sensed their presence. Joseph appeared with champagne, poured 2 glasses, and vanished. Marco raised his glass. "To new beginnings," Harper hesitated only briefly before touching her glass to his. The champagne was exquisite, bubbles dancing on her tongue. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Marco said. The request caught her off guard. "Why?" "Because I want to know you. The real you, not the version you show the world." Harper took another sip for courage. "I sabotaged my ex-fiancé's culinary school application. We were both applying to the same prestigious program, only 2 spots available. He'd been cruel that week, tearing down my techniques, my creativity. So I accidentally spilled coffee on his application, then rewrote it with several key errors." Marco's eyebrows rose. "Did he get in?" "No, but I did." His laugh was genuine, transforming his face. "Remind me never to cross you in the kitchen." "Your turn," Harper said. "Tell me something real." His smile faded, expression growing contemplative. "I never wanted to take over my father's business. I wanted to study architecture. I designed this villa when I was 19. The confession surprised her. "Why didn't you?" "Family obligations." His tone closed the subject. "We all make sacrifices for those we love." Joseph returned with their first course, delicate scallops on cauliflower puree, garnished with truffle oil. The presentation was flawless. "Your chef is talented," Harper said after tasting the perfectly seared scallop. "He should be. I hired him from a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Paris." Marco watched her appreciatively. "Though I'd be interested in tasting your cooking sometime. I'm just a line cook. For now." The certainty in his voice puzzled her. "What does that mean?" "It means you dream of your own restaurant, don't you?" He reached across the table. "Dreams shouldn't wait for someday, Harper. Not everyone has the luxury of making dreams reality whenever they want. Perhaps that could change, if you allowed it." Harper met his gaze. "I'm not looking for a benefactor, Marco. And I'm not offering to be one." His fingers traced patterns on her hand. "I'm offering something more." The meal continued, course after exquisite course. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by charged silences. Marco asked about her childhood, her ambitions, her favorite memories. He listened like everything she said mattered profoundly. He shared carefully selected details about himself, his love for this coast, his collection of rare books, his preference for Italian wines. But he never discussed his business, his family's reputation, the obvious wealth surrounding them. Those subjects remained carefully cordoned off. After dessert, a deconstructed lemon tart that made her close her eyes in pleasure, Marco stood and extended his hand. "Walk with me." He led her down stone steps winding to a private beach below. Sand cooled her bare feet as they walked along the shore, moonlight casting everything silver. Security maintained distance, dark silhouettes near the steps. "Do they always follow you?" Harper asked. "Always, a necessary precaution." "Because of your business?" Marco stopped walking, turning to face her. The sea breeze ruffled his hair, moonlight carving shadows beneath his cheekbones. "Does it bother you? What you think you know about me?" She considered honestly. "I don't know what to think. I know your family's reputation, but I don't know what's true." "And if it were all true?" His voice remained calm, but she sensed tension beneath. "Would you be here with me now?" She should say no. Any rational person would. But standing there with him, waves crashing nearby, the memory of his thoughtful questions still fresh, she couldn't lie. "Yes, I think I would be." Something shifted in his expression. Relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. He stepped closer, hand cupping her cheek. "You continue to surprise me, Harper Clark." His touch was gentle, but she felt the leashed power beneath it. This man could destroy her if he wanted to. Yet something told her he wouldn't. "Is that good or bad?" she whispered. "Very, very good." His thumb brushed her bottom lip. "May I kiss you?" The formal request, so at odds with his commanding presence, made her heart flutter. "Yes." His lips met hers with surprising gentleness, a question rather than demand. Harper responded instantly, hands finding his chest, feeling solid warmth through fine fabric. The kiss deepened, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her flush against him. She was lost in the sensation when a sharp sound, car door slamming above, broke the spell. Marco pulled back, breathing uneven, eyes immediately scanning their surroundings. One of his security men approached rapidly. "Sir, there's a situation requiring immediate attention." Marco's expression hardened instantly, the tenderness vanishing behind cold authority. "Take Miss Clark back to the villa. I'll join her shortly." "Marco." He turned back, features softening slightly. "It's nothing to worry about. Business that can't wait." He pressed a swift, hard kiss to her lips. "Go with Franco. I won't be long." Before she could protest, he was striding away, phone already to his ear, his voice dropping to that harder register she'd heard before. In the villa, Joseph served more champagne in a luxurious sitting room, then withdrew. Harper sank into a plush sofa, replaying the kiss, the abrupt interruption, the immediate transformation in Marco's demeanor. What kind of business demanded attention at this hour on Saturday night? She knew the answer. The DeLuca family didn't build their empire through legal enterprises. Harper wandered the room, examining artwork, original pieces by masters she recognized. On a side table sat framed photographs. Most showed a younger Marco with an older man sharing his strong features. His father, she presumed. In one, they stood on this very terrace, arms around each other, smiling. Another photo caught her attention. Marco, perhaps early 20s, with his arm around a beautiful dark-haired woman in a red gown. The way they looked at each other spoke of intimacy. Unexpected jealousy stabbed through her. Who was she? "My sister, Sophia." Harper jumped, nearly dropping her glass. Marco stood in the doorway, watching her with an unreadable expression. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry." He crossed to stand beside her, picking up the photograph. No need to apologize. This was her engagement party 5 years ago. A shadow crossed his face. "She lives in Milan now with her husband and son. You miss her." "Every day. She's the only family I have left." He set the photo down carefully. "And your father?" Marco's expression closed off. "Passed away 3 years ago. Heart attack." "I'm sorry." He took the champagne from her hand, setting it aside. "I didn't come back to discuss my family. I came to apologize for the interruption." "Is everything okay?" "It's handled." His tone made clear the subject was closed. His eyes traveled over her possessively. "It's getting late. Perhaps I should have Franco drive you home." "Perhaps." But neither of them moved. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. "Or," Marco said softly, stepping closer, "you could stay. The villa has 6 guest rooms. You could have whichever you choose." Harper's pulse quickened. "I don't have anything with me." "The master suite has everything you might need. I keep it prepared for unexpected stays." The implication that other women had stayed here sent another jolt of jealousy through her. Marco must have read it in her expression because he pulled her closer. "Don't misunderstand. I've never brought anyone else here. This place is private. Special." His thumb traced her jawline. "Like what's happening between us." She searched his face for deception, but found only sincerity and that familiar intensity. "One night," Harper conceded. His smile was triumphant. "I'll show you to your room." He led her to a stunning suite, massive 4-poster bed draped in white linens, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the moonlit ocean, a fireplace crackling with welcoming flames. "This is the master bedroom," Harper realized. "The best room in the house. Nothing but the best for you." He showed her the adjoining dressing room stocked with clothing in various sizes, the marble bathroom with its sunken tub. "And where will you sleep?" Harper asked, suddenly aware they were alone in his bedroom. "There are other rooms." His eyes told a different story. "Unless you'd prefer I stayed." Her face flushed. "Separate rooms would be best. For tonight." "For tonight," he repeated, a promise in the words. He approached slowly, his hand sliding along her bare shoulder, up her neck to cradle her face. "Sweet dreams, Harper." His kiss was brief but intense, leaving her breathless. At the door, he paused. "Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me." The second reminder about locked doors. Are you expecting trouble? Something flickered in his eyes. In my world, it pays to be cautious. After he left, Harper locked the door, then stood in the center of his bedroom, surrounded by luxury that spoke of unimaginable wealth. She was in Marco DeLuca's home, wearing his gift, having been kissed by him on a moonlit beach. She should be more afraid. Instead, she felt intoxicated by possibility. Harper slipped between silk sheets, wearing a nightgown from the dressing room. Despite everything, the warnings, the danger, the obvious complications, sleep came easily, the sound of distant waves lulling her into dreams of dark eyes and dangerous promises. And tomorrow, she knew, everything would change again. Harper woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to close and the distant cry of seagulls. For a disoriented moment, she lay in the massive bed, surrounded by unfamiliar luxury. Then memory flooded back. The villa, the moonlit kiss, Marco's dark eyes promising things she'd stopped letting herself want. The sapphire necklace still rested against her throat. She'd forgotten to remove it before sleeping, and now it felt like a brand, marking her as his. A soft knock at the door made her sit up quickly. "Harper?" Marco's voice, low and measured. "Are you awake?" She pulled the silk sheets higher, suddenly conscious of wearing only the borrowed nightgown. "Yes." "Just a moment." In the dressing room, she found a white robe and slipped it on before unlocking the door. Marco stood in the hallway, dressed casually in dark jeans and a light blue shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked younger somehow, less intimidating, though his eyes held the same intensity. "Good morning." His gaze moved appreciatively over her in a way that made heat rise to her cheeks. "I hope you slept well." "Better than I have in months," she admitted truthfully. "I'm glad." He held out a steaming mug. "Coffee, black with 1 sugar." Harper took it, surprised. "How did you—" "I pay attention." His smile was warm. "I've had breakfast prepared on the terrace. Take your time getting ready." After he left, Harper showered in the luxurious bathroom, the multiple shower heads pulsing hot water from all directions. In the dressing room, she found a pale blue sundress that fit perfectly, along with delicate sandals. The precision unsettled her. Had Marco anticipated her size, or was this coincidence? Given what she was learning about him, she suspected the former. Downstairs, she followed soft music to the terrace. In daylight, the view was spectacular. Azure water stretching to infinity, cliffs falling away to the private beach, lush gardens cascading down the hillside. Marco stood at the stone balustrade, and when he turned at her footsteps, something in his expression made her breath catch. "The dress suits you," he said, approaching to take her hand and bring it to his lips. "Though I prefer you in sapphires." His glance at the necklace made her self-conscious. "I should have taken it off before sleeping." "No. I like seeing it on you. I like knowing you wore something I gave you while you dreamed." The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent a thrill down her spine. Breakfast was lavish. Fresh fruit, warm pastries, eggs prepared 3 ways, freshly squeezed orange juice. They ate in comfortable silence, the ocean breeze carrying the scent of salt and flowers. "What would you like to do today?" Marco asked eventually. "We could take the boat out, or there's a town nearby with excellent shopping, or—" His smile turned mischievous. "We could just stay here." Reality intruded. "I actually have an evening shift at Marcello's. I should get back to the city." "Call in sick." Harper blinked at his casual suggestion. "I can't just call in sick because I want to play hooky." "Why not?" He seemed genuinely puzzled. "Surely you've earned a day off." "That's not how it works for most people, Marco. I need that job. I have rent, bills. I could take care of all of that for you." He said it casually, as if offering to pick up a check. "You wouldn't need to worry about money again." The offer hung between them, tempting and dangerous. "I barely know you." "You know the important parts." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm not suggesting you quit today, Harper. Just that you allow yourself 1 day without worry." "Is that so terrible?" Put that way, it was hard to refuse. And truthfully, she didn't want to leave this beautiful place, this bubble where Marco made her feel cherished. One phone call to Chef Romano, who was surprisingly understanding, almost obsequious. Harper handed Marco's phone back, suspicion growing. "Did you speak to him before today?" Marco's expression gave nothing away. "I may have mentioned I'd appreciate flexibility regarding your schedule." "What does that mean?" "It means you're free to enjoy the day without worry." He stood, pulling her to her feet. "Now, about that boat." The yacht was sleek and expensive, moored in a private dock below the villa. Franco and another security man accompanied them, maintaining discreet distance as Marco helped her aboard. A captain waited on the upper deck. They cruised along the coast, Marco pointing out properties he owned, secluded coves, a lighthouse he'd restored. He spoke of the area with genuine love, revealing a connection that went beyond mere ownership. They stopped in a private cove for lunch served on deck by staff who seemed to materialize from nowhere. Afterward, Marco produced swimsuits from a cabinet, another sign of his meticulous preparation. "Do you always keep women's swimwear on your yacht?" Harper teased, selecting a modest black one-piece. His eyes darkened. "As I told you, Harper, I've never brought anyone else here. This is new for me, too." The simple admission, delivered with unexpected vulnerability, caught her off guard. If he was telling the truth, and something in his expression made her believe he was, then whatever was happening between them was as unusual for him as it was for her. Swimming in crystal-clear water, the sun warm on her skin, Marco's arms occasionally brushing hers as they floated together, Harper felt herself falling deeper under his spell. He was attentive, intelligent, genuinely interested in her thoughts and dreams. When she spoke of wanting her own restaurant someday, he asked insightful questions about her vision, her preferred cuisine, how she'd design the space. "You could do it now," he said as they lounged on the deck afterward, sun beginning its descent. "There's a location in the West District that would be perfect. Former bistro with an excellent kitchen already installed. It's been vacant for months." Harper sat up. "How do you know about that?" "I own the building." He said it casually. "The space could be yours, renovated however you like, ready to open within a month." The offer was so tempting she couldn't breathe. Her own restaurant. Her dream, suddenly within reach. "I can't afford to lease a space in the West District, let alone renovate and staff a restaurant. I'm not talking about leasing. I'm talking about giving it to you." She stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because I can. Because I want to see you succeed." He sat up, moving closer until his face was inches from hers. "Because you have extraordinary talent that's being wasted. Because I want to see you smile the way you're smiling right now." Her heart raced. No one had ever believed in her like this. "What would you want in return?" His thumb brushed her bottom lip. "Just you, your time, your attention, your trust." "My trust." She searched his face. "That's a lot to ask from someone in your position." Understanding flickered in his eyes. "I would never hurt you, Harper. What I do, who I am, that part of my life would never touch you. I can promise to protect you with everything I have." "Can you really promise that?" Instead of answering, he kissed her. Unlike their first kiss on the beach, this one held nothing back. His lips claimed hers with passionate intensity, his hand sliding into her hair. Harper responded with equal fervor, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body arching toward his. When he finally pulled away, they were both breathing hard. "I can promise to protect you, with everything I have, with my life, if necessary." They returned to the villa as the sun set, casting golden light across the cliffs. Despite Harper's protests about needing to return for work, Marco convinced her to stay for dinner. "One more meal," he'd said, fingers entwined with hers. "Then I'll have you driven back tonight if that's what you truly want." Dinner was served in a glass-walled room jutting over the cliff edge, giving the impression of dining suspended above the sea. Candles again, soft music, white roses. Marco waiting with that familiar look of appreciation and hunger. The conversation flowed easily, but tension hummed between them, a sense of decisions pending. Harper hadn't answered about the restaurant, and he hadn't pressed, but the offer hung between them, tantalizing and complicated. "Come back to the city with me tonight." Harper said impulsively as dessert was served. See my world for a change. Surprise flickered across his face. Your apartment? She nodded. It's small and nothing special, but it's mine. I want you to see it, really see it. If this is going to continue, you should know me, the real me, not just who I am surrounded by all this. She gestured at the luxury. Something softened in his expression. I'd like that. During the drive back, Marco sat close, his hand resting possessively on her thigh. He received several texts, his expression hardening momentarily before returning attention to her. The outside world was already intruding. At her building, Franco and the other security man swept the area before allowing Marco to escort her inside. Harper felt self-conscious climbing the 3 flights of stairs, aware of the peeling paint, the flickering fluorescent light. Her apartment suddenly looked shabby. Second-hand furniture, cramped kitchen, view of a brick wall instead of ocean panorama. But Marco moved through the space with genuine interest, examining her cookbooks, the family photos, the struggling herb garden on her windowsill. It's very you, he said finally, turning with a smile that seemed sincere. Warm, inviting, full of potential. Relief flooded her. It's not much. It's perfect, he interrupted, closing the distance. Because it's yours. His kiss was gentle at first, but quickly deepened into something urgent. Harper's hands found their way under his jacket, feeling warmth through his shirt. His own hands pulled her tight against him, one tangling in her hair, the other at her back. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, a question hung between them. Stay or go? Her bedroom door was visible, the decision seemingly simple yet fraught with implications. Marco's phone buzzed. He ignored it at first, eyes locked on hers. But when it buzzed again immediately, resignation crossed his face. I need to check this. His voice was rough with restrained desire. Harper nodded, stepping back. He turned away, phone to his ear, his voice dropping to that harder register. When? Are you certain? No. Keep them there. I'll handle it personally. Yes, tonight. When he turned back, his expression had changed completely. The warmth was gone, replaced by cold fury that made Harper take an involuntary step back. I have to go. Business that can't wait. Nathaniel? Franco will stay outside your door tonight. Don't leave the apartment. Keep everything locked. His tone brooked no argument. What's happening? Are you in danger? Something softened briefly. He returned to cup her face in his hands. Nothing for you to worry about. Just a situation requiring my attention. You're scaring me. He pressed a hard, quick kiss to her lips. Don't be scared. Just be safe for me. Lock your doors. I'll call when I can. Then he was gone, the door closing firmly behind him, leaving Harper standing in her apartment wondering what she'd gotten herself into. And why, despite the obvious warning signs, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. Outside, Franco took up his position. Harper locked the door, triple-checked it, and sank onto her couch with the sapphire pendant heavy against her throat. Whatever world Marco inhabited, she was already being pulled into its orbit. The only question was whether she'd survive the fall. Harper didn't sleep. How could she, knowing Franco stood sentinel outside her door while Marco dealt with some mysterious situation that had transformed him from attentive lover to cold-eyed enforcer in seconds? She paced her small apartment until dawn painted her windows gray, jumping at every sound, checking her phone obsessively for a call that never came. By morning, exhaustion pressed behind her eyes, but her mind refused to quiet. She showered, dressed for her lunch shift at Marcello's, and opened her door to find Franco exactly where she'd left him. Alert despite the all-night vigil, his suit still crisp. Mr. DeLuca asked that you remain here today, Franco said, straightening. Harper's jaw set. I have to work. Mr. DeLuca was quite insistent. Mr. DeLuca doesn't control my life. The declaration felt hollow even as she said it. Hadn't she already allowed Marco to rearrange her weekend, her thinking, her desires? I need to go to work. You can come with me or stay here, but I'm leaving. Franco's expression didn't change, but she sensed his internal calculation. Finally, he nodded once. "I'll accompany you." The walk to Marcello's was tense, Franco scanning the street constantly, one hand inside his jacket where she knew a weapon was holstered. Her nerves, already frayed from the sleepless night, stretched tighter with each block. At the restaurant, Franco insisted on checking the premises before allowing her inside. Chef Romano raised an eyebrow at the serious man in the dark suit, but said nothing. In fact, everyone seemed to be giving Harper a wide berth, glances filled with curiosity and something like fear. Did they all somehow know about her connection to Marco De Luca? The thought was unsettling. Harper threw herself into work, grateful for the mindless routine of prep. Franco took a seat at the bar, his eyes constantly moving, his presence a stark reminder that whatever normal life she'd had was already slipping away. Halfway through her shift, Sophie appeared at her station, expression mixing excitement and concern. "There's someone asking for you. Table 12. Harper's heart leapt, thinking it might be Marco, but Franco's lack of reaction suggested otherwise. "Who is it?" He wouldn't give his name, just said he was an old friend. Sophie glanced toward the dining room nervously. "He looks important. Expensive suit, really intense eyes." Harper wiped her hands, untying her apron. "I'll be right back." Franco stood as she emerged from the kitchen, but she waved him back. "I'm just checking on a table. I'll be visible the whole time." Table 12 was in a corner, partially concealed by a decorative screen. As Harper approached, she saw a man sitting alone, his back to the wall, giving him a clear view of the entire restaurant. Perhaps mid-50s, silver threading through dark hair, his face handsome in a weathered way. His suit was expensive, his demeanor suggesting someone accustomed to command. "You asked for me," Harper said, stopping a cautious distance from the table. He looked up, and something in his gaze, calculating, assessing, reminded her jarringly of Marco. "Miss Clark, please join me." "Do I know you?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "No, but I know quite a bit about you. I'm Vincent Caruso." The name meant nothing to her, but something in his tone suggested it should. Harper remained standing. "What do you want?" "To talk about Marco De Luca." He gestured to the empty chair. "Please, this concerns your safety." At the mention of Marco, Harper glanced toward Franco, who was watching them intently from the bar. He hadn't intervened, which meant either he didn't recognize this man as a threat, or hadn't noticed who she was speaking with. Reluctantly, Harper sat. "What about Marco?" Vincent leaned forward slightly. "You've become quite close to him in a very short time. That's none of your business. Did you know," he continued as if she hadn't spoken, "that the last woman Marco showed serious interest in ended up disappearing, vanished without a trace?" Ice spread through her veins. "You're lying." "Am I?" He removed a phone from his pocket, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a photo of a beautiful blonde woman smiling at the camera. Valerie Klein. She was seeing Marco for about 3 months. Then she started asking questions about his business, about certain inconsistencies she'd noticed. She disappeared 2 days later. No body was ever found. Harper pushed the phone back toward him, her hand trembling slightly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Marco De Luca is not who you think he is." Vincent's voice dropped lower. "He's dangerous, Miss Clark, not just because of his business dealings, but because of what he's become since his father died. His father was ruthless but fair, had codes he followed. Marco?" He shook his head. "He's unpredictable, volatile, and he's developed an unhealthy obsession with you." "How do you know anything about me?" Harper demanded, fear giving way to anger. "My business interests occasionally overlap with the De Luca families. We've been competitors for many years." He produced a business card, sliding it across the table. "If you ever need help, if you ever feel unsafe, call this number, day or night." Before Harper could respond, she sensed movement beside the table. Franco had appeared, his expression hard as he stared down at Vincent. "Mr. Caruso," Franco said, his tone flat. "Mr. De Luca would consider this conversation unwelcome." Vincent smiled thinly, standing and buttoning his jacket. "I was just leaving." He turned to Harper, his expression grave. "Remember what I said, Miss Clark. The offer stands." After he left, Franco turned to her. What did he want? Harper hesitated, the business card clutched in her palm. Just to talk about Mr. DeLuca. Franco's eyes narrowed. Mr. Caruso and Mr. DeLuca are not friends. You would be wise to stay away from him. I didn't seek him out, Harper said defensively. He came here, and now he's gone. Franco's tone softened slightly. For your safety, you should tell Mr. DeLuca about this conversation when he contacts you. When will that be? Soon. Franco checked his watch. Are you finished with your shift? Mr. DeLuca asked that I bring you to the penthouse when you're done. The penthouse? His residence in the city. Harper thought of her small apartment, the sleepless night she'd spent there, the lingering fear. Then she thought of Vincent Caruso's warnings, the photo of the blonde woman, the implication that Marco was somehow responsible for her disappearance. Who should she trust? The man who had swept into her life with gifts and promises, who made her feel valued in a way no one ever had? Or the stranger with grave warnings and talk of disappearances? I'll need to go home first, Harper said finally, to change clothes and pack a bag. Franco nodded. Of course. At her apartment, Harper quickly packed an overnight bag, her mind spinning with Vincent's accusations. She slipped his business card into her wallet, unsure why she was keeping it, unable to throw it away. The drive to Marco's penthouse took them to the most exclusive part of the city, a gleaming tower of glass and steel overlooking the river. Security was extensive, guarded gate, keycard access, cameras everywhere. Franco used a code to access the penthouse level, the elevator opening directly into a marble-floored foyer. Mr. DeLuca will be back soon, Franco said, showing her into a massive living area with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the spectacular city view. Make yourself comfortable. After he left, Harper wandered through the space, taking in the sleek modern decor. Unlike the coastal villa with its old-world charm, the penthouse was all clean lines and minimalist design. It felt like a showplace rather than a home, impressive but impersonal. The only hints of the man who lived here came from a wall of bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes and a baby grand piano in one corner, sheet music open on the stand. Harper ran her fingers over the keys, wondering if Marco played. Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major. She spun around to find Marco standing in the doorway. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. Still handsome, still commanding, but visibly worn. You play? Harper asked, her heart racing at the sight of him. When I need to think. He crossed the room, stopping a few feet away as if uncertain of his welcome. I'm sorry about last night, leaving without explanation. You put a guard at my door and disappeared for 12 hours. I had no choice. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she hadn't seen before, a crack in his perfect composure. There was a situation that required my immediate attention. A dangerous situation. His expression tightened. Yes, dangerous enough that you thought I needed protection. Harper took a step toward him. Marco, what's going on? Who are you afraid of? Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that she'd read the situation so accurately. It's complicated. Try me. Harper took another step. I met someone today, Vincent Caruso. The change in Marco was instantaneous and chilling. His entire body tensed, his expression hardening into something she barely recognized. What did he want? To warn me about you, Harper said honestly. He told me a woman you were seeing disappeared, Valerie Klein. Marco's laugh was bitter, dangerous. Of course he did. And did he mention that Valerie Klein was working for him? That she was planted in my organization to gather information? That she's very much alive and living comfortably on his payroll in Monaco? Harper stared at him, uncertain what to believe. He said you were dangerous, unstable. And what do you think? Marco closed the distance between them, his eyes searching hers. Am I dangerous, Harper? She thought of the security men, the urgent phone call, the way people deferred to him with fear and respect. Yes, I think you are. Something like pain crossed his features. To my enemies, perhaps. Never to you. Why not? What makes me different? You've known me less than a week. And yet I feel like I've been waiting for you my entire life. His hands came up to cup her face. From the moment I saw you at that gala, standing alone in that corner, I knew you were different. Special. You make it sound like fate. Maybe it was. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm not a good man, Harper. My hands aren't clean. My business isn't legitimate. The power I wield has been built on choices many would find unforgivable. Harper should have pulled away. His confession should have sent her running. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch. Vincent Caruso is my father's oldest enemy, Marco continued. Their feud goes back decades. When my father died, Caruso thought I'd be easier to manipulate, to intimidate. When that failed, he resorted to more direct methods, like sending Valerie to spy on me, like approaching you today with lies designed to drive us apart. Why would I be a target? Marco's hand slid to her shoulders. Because you matter to me. And in my world, Harper, the things and people that matter become targets. That's why Franco was at your door, why I wanted you to stay in your apartment. Last night, one of Caruso's men was caught trying to access sensitive information that could have put many people at risk, including you. The reality sank in. Her connection to Marco had already put her in danger, would always put her in danger. That's why you left so suddenly, Harper realized. Yes, the immediate threat has been neutralized. Something in his tone made her shiver. But Caruso remains a problem, one I'll deal with permanently very soon. The implication was clear. For the first time, Harper truly understood who Marco DeLuca was, what he was capable of, what he had likely already done. I should go, she said, stepping back from his touch. This is too much, too fast. Pain flashed across his face, quickly masked. Of course, I understand. But as Harper turned toward her bag, a new thought struck her. Would she ever be truly safe now? She'd been seen with Marco, spent a weekend at his villa. Vincent Caruso already knew who she was, where she worked. The danger wouldn't disappear just because she walked away. She turned back to find Marco watching her, his expression carefully neutral despite the tension radiating from him. If I stay, Harper said slowly, what does that mean for us? Hope sparked in his eyes. Whatever you want it to mean. I told you before, I'm offering you everything. Not just material things, but myself. All of me. Even the parts that frighten you. He approached cautiously. I will protect you from the darkest parts. They will never touch your life. I promise you that. Can you really keep that promise? Harper challenged. You just said being connected to you makes me a target, which is why I'll protect you with everything I have. He reached for her hand, his grip gentle but secure. I can give you a life most people only dream of, Harper. Safety, luxury, your own restaurant, anything you desire. All I ask in return is your trust, your loyalty. And if I wanted more? The question surprised even her. What if I wanted all of you, Marco? Not just the charming man who brings me coffee, but the man who makes midnight phone calls, the man who neutralizes threats. Something dangerous and thrilling flickered in his eyes. You don't know what you're asking for. Maybe not, Harper admitted, but I'm not naive. I know who you are, what your family does, and I'm still here. He studied her for a long moment, as if seeing her anew. Then, decision made, he pulled her against him, his kiss desperate and claiming. Harper responded with equal fervor, her arms winding around his neck, her body molding to his. When they broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. Stay with me tonight. Let me show you what you mean to me. Harper knew she was standing at a crossroads. One path led back to her old life, safe, predictable, ordinary. The other led into Marco's world of luxury and danger, power and passion. There would be no going back once she chose. Yes, she said, the decision suddenly clear. I'll stay. What followed was a revelation. Marco led her to his bedroom, deep blues and grays creating a cocoon of luxury. His touch was both reverent and possessive as he undressed her, his eyes drinking in every inch of revealed skin. Beautiful, he murmured, the sapphire necklace still at her throat catching light. Perfect. What followed was a claiming, a seduction, a promise sealed in the most primal way. Marco was as commanding in this as everything else, yet attentive to every response, every gasp and shudder. When they finally lay spent in each other's arms, city lights twinkling beyond the windows, Harper felt marked by him in ways both visible and invisible. "I love you," he whispered against her hair, the confession startling in its simplicity. "I think I've loved you from the moment I saw you." In the rational part of her mind, Harper knew it was too soon for such declarations. They'd known each other less than a week. Yet something about it rang true. This connection that had formed so quickly, so intensely. "I think I might love you too," she admitted, her voice soft in the darkness. As crazy as that sounds. His arms tightened around her. Not crazy. Fate. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time since meeting him, Harper slept deeply, dreamlessly, with no fear or uncertainty. Morning brought sunlight and Marco's warm body still wrapped around hers. Harper studied his sleeping face. Younger in repose, the hard edges softened. She'd made her choice. Whatever came next, whatever complications awaited, she knew she belonged here. With him. In his dangerous, beautiful world. And she wouldn't have it any other way. 3 weeks passed in a blur of decisions and transformations. Harper moved into the penthouse officially, her modest belongings looking lost in Marco's expansive closets, until he had them supplemented with an entire wardrobe that made her feel like someone else entirely, someone who belonged in his world. The restaurant in the West District became her obsession. Marco had kept his promise, signing over the building without conditions, giving her carte blanche on renovations. She spent her days with architects and designers, her evenings with Marco, and her nights learning what it meant to be loved by a man who held nothing back. But Vincent Caruso's warnings lingered like smoke she couldn't quite clear from her lungs. She was reviewing menu drafts in Marco's study when Franco appeared in the doorway, his expression tense. "Miss Clark, Mr. DeLuca asked me to inform you he'll be late tonight. Business meeting." Harper had learned not to ask about business meetings. "How late?" "Uncertain. He suggested you not wait up." Franco hesitated. "He also wanted me to remind you not to leave the penthouse without security." The reminder grated. 3 weeks of living with constant protection, of guards shadowing her every move. She understood the necessity. Marco had explained about Caruso's reach, his patience, his willingness to strike when least expected. But understanding didn't make the cage feel less confining. "I'll be fine, Franco. I'm just working on menu planning." After he left, Harper tried to focus on her notes, but restlessness drove her to the windows. The city spread below, alive with lights and possibilities, and she felt suddenly trapped in this beautiful tower. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. Harper's pulse quickened as she answered. "Hello? Miss Clark, it's Vincent Caruso." His voice was smooth, unhurried. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Every instinct screamed to hang up, but curiosity held her frozen. "How did you get this number?" "I make it my business to have access to important information. I'm calling because I have something you need to see. Something about Marco that he's been hiding from you. I'm not interested in your lies." "Not lies. Evidence." His tone sharpened. "Meet me, 1 hour, the Bellwether Hotel, room 412. Come alone or don't come at all. But Harper, if you care about the truth, you'll be there." The line went dead. Harper stood holding her phone, her mind racing. It was obviously a trap. Marco had warned her about Caruso's manipulations, his willingness to use any tactic to create division. The smart thing would be to call Marco immediately, let him handle it. But what if Caruso really did have evidence? What if Marco was still keeping secrets? Before she could talk herself out of it, Harper grabbed her coat and slipped out through the service entrance she'd discovered during her second week in the penthouse. The security there was lighter, focused outward rather than in. She made it to the street and hailed a taxi before anyone noticed. The Bellwether was a mid-range hotel in a neutral neighborhood. Neither Marco's territory nor Caruso's, she presumed. Harper's heart hammered as she rode the elevator to the 4th floor, every instinct screaming that this was a mistake. Room 412's door stood slightly ajar. Harper pushed it open slowly. Vincent Caruso sat in an armchair by the window, a manila folder on the table beside him. But he wasn't alone. 3 men stood around the room, security obviously, mirroring Marco's constant protection. "Miss Clark, thank you for coming." Vincent gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Please sit." Harper remained standing near the door, calculating escape routes. "You said you had evidence. Show me." Vincent picked up the folder, extending it toward her. "Everything you need to know about Marco DeLuca. His father's death wasn't a heart attack. It was poison, administered by someone close to him. The Castellano family didn't just disappear. They were eliminated, down to the children." "And Valerie Klein?" His expression hardened. "She may be alive in Monaco, but only because she's terrified to come forward. Marco threatened her family." Harper's hand shook as she took the folder, but she didn't open it. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you deserve to know who you're sleeping with. Because Marco DeLuca is a monster, and he's using you." Vincent leaned forward. "But there's another reason. I need leverage against him, and you're it. So here's my offer. Work with me. Feed me information about his operations, his weaknesses. In return, I'll protect you when this all falls apart. And it will fall apart, Harper. Men like Marco always burn." Ice crystallized in Harper's veins, but not from fear, from fury. "You want me to betray him. I want you to survive him." Harper looked down at the folder, then back at Vincent. In that moment, she understood exactly what Marco had been protecting her from. Not just physical danger, but this. Manipulation. Lies wrapped in concern. The slow poison of doubt. "Did you know," Harper said slowly, "that Marco told me you'd try something like this? He said you'd offer me evidence, play on my fears, try to turn me against him." She dropped the folder on the table without opening it. "He knows you, Vincent. Better than you think." Vincent's expression darkened. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe. But it's my mistake to make." Harper moved toward the door. "I'm leaving now. Don't contact me again." She'd almost reached the hallway when Vincent's voice stopped her. "You won't make it out of this hotel, you know. My men are in the lobby, the stairwells. Marco isn't here to protect you." Harper turned back slowly. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm stating facts. You came here alone, foolishly trusting. Now you're leverage." Vincent stood, his false concern dropping away to reveal cold calculation. "Marco will trade what I want for your safety. And if he doesn't, well, you'll learn exactly what kind of man he really is." Fear spiked through Harper's chest, but she kept her voice steady. "You're wrong about one thing. I didn't come alone." Vincent's brow furrowed. "You weren't followed. I had men watching." "I wasn't followed," Harper agreed. "But do you really think Marco DeLuca doesn't know every move I make? Do you think he'd let me leave his penthouse without being aware?" Uncertainty flickered in Vincent's eyes. Before he could respond, the hotel room door burst open. Franco entered first, gun drawn, followed by 3 more of Marco's security. And then Marco himself, his expression colder than Harper had ever seen it. "Harper, come here." His voice was arctic. She crossed to him immediately, and his arm wrapped around her waist, protective, possessive. His eyes never left Vincent. "You made a critical error, Caruso," Marco said softly. "You threatened what's mine." Vincent's face had gone pale, but he maintained his composure. "This is a public hotel. You can't..." "Can't what?" Marco's smile was terrible. "You brought her here intending to use her as leverage. You threatened her safety. That voids every agreement, every courtesy that existed between our families." He nodded to Franco. "Take him." What followed happened quickly. Vincent's security moved, but Marco's men were faster, better trained. Within seconds, Vincent was restrained, his men disarmed and subdued. "Marco, wait," Vincent started. "You're finished in this city," Marco said, his tone conversational despite the violence of his words. "Your operations, your properties, your protection, All of it gone by morning. And you? He stepped closer. You're going to disappear, not killed. I'm not that merciful. Just erased. No power, no resources, no way to ever threaten what's mine again. He turned to Harper, his expression softening fractionally. We're leaving. In the car, Marco was silent, his jaw tight, his hand gripping hers almost painfully. Harper knew he was furious, not just at Vincent, but at her. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I know I shouldn't have. You left without security. His voice was controlled, but she heard the tremor of rage beneath. You met with a man I explicitly warned you about. You put yourself in danger. I know. But Marco, I had to know. Know what? He turned to face her, and she saw genuine fear beneath the anger. If I was lying to you, if everything I've told you was manipulation. He cupped her face in his hands. Harper, I have kept no secrets from you. Not about who I am, what I do, the danger that comes with being mine. I have been more honest with you than anyone in my life. Tears pricked her eyes. I know. I do know that. But when he called, saying he had evidence about your father's death, about the Castellano family. My father's death was a heart attack, likely stress-induced from decades of this life. The Castellanos were eliminated, yes, by my father before I took over, because they murdered his brother. Valerie Klein is alive because I let her live, though she deserved far worse for her betrayal. His thumbs brushed away her tears. I would have told you all of this if you'd asked. You never needed to risk yourself to learn the truth. I'm sorry, Harper whispered. I was stupid and reckless. You were brave, Marco corrected, pulling her against his chest. Foolish, but brave. You went to face what you feared instead of running from it. That's why I love you. They rode the rest of the way in silence, Marco's arms wrapped around her, his heart beating steady beneath her ear. Back at the penthouse, Marco led her to the bedroom, his touch gentle as he undressed her, checking for injuries even though she'd never been touched. His tenderness after such violence undid her completely. I need you to understand something, Marco said as they lay tangled together later. My world is dangerous. There will always be threats, always be enemies. But Harper, I will burn this entire city down before I let anything happen to you. Do you understand? She nodded against his chest. I do now. Good. Because tomorrow we're moving forward with the restaurant. No more delays, no more threats. You're going to build your dream, and I'm going to make certain nothing stands in your way. 6 months later, Harper stood outside the gleaming glass doors of her restaurant, her hand trembling slightly as she adjusted her chef's jacket. The sign above read simply Harper's in elegant script. Marco appeared beside her, devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit, his hand settling possessively at her back. Ready? As I'll ever be. He turned her to face him, pride evident in his eyes. You've created something extraordinary. Everyone is going to love it. The crowd gathering on the sidewalk supported his claim. Food critics, local celebrities, influential bloggers, all waiting for the grand opening. Harper had poured 6 months of passion into every detail, the menu showcasing her culinary vision, the decor blending modern elegance with warmth, the staff she'd personally trained. True to his word, Marco had given her complete creative control, offering support without interference. He'd been there for every milestone. Late nights reviewing plans, early mornings testing recipes, moments of doubt when she'd wondered if she could really pull this off. Their relationship had deepened in ways she'd never thought possible. Marco remained possessive, protective, sometimes controlling, but always devoted. The diamond necklace, no longer sapphire but something even more precious, rested at her throat. He'd given it to her 3 months ago, along with a proposal that had taken her breath away. She wore his ring now, a stone that made the necklace look modest by comparison. They hadn't set a date yet, too focused on the restaurant opening, but Harper knew it would happen soon. Marco was not a patient man when he wanted something. You're thinking too hard, Marco said now, his thumb brushing her cheek. Tonight is for celebrating. Behind him, she could see Franco and the other security men positioned strategically. Some things hadn't changed. Marco's caution, his insistence on protection. But Harper had come to find comfort in their presence rather than confinement. Vincent Caruso had indeed disappeared, his empire dismantled within a week of that night at the Bellwether. Harper never asked for details. Some secrets were better left unspoken. "Ready to open the doors?" Marco asked. Harper nodded, squaring her shoulders. As she moved to unlock the entrance, she caught her reflection in the glass. Confident, poised, so different from the woman who'd stood invisible at that charity gala a year ago. Everyone had ignored her that night. Everyone except the most dangerous man in the room. The man who had seen something in her worth claiming, worth protecting, worth loving. The man who now watched with pride and possession as she unlocked the doors to her dream. The crowd surged forward with applause. Marco leaned close, his lips brushing her ear. "I told you everything would change if you let it." Harper turned to him, her smile radiant. "For the better." "Always," he promised, pulling her close for a brief, claiming kiss before the crowd swept them inside. As she moved through her restaurant, greeting guests, accepting congratulations, seeing her vision finally realized, Harper felt Marco's eyes on her constantly. His hand would find her back at intervals, a possessive touch that said, "Mine." Later, after the last guest had left and the staff was cleaning up, Marco led her to the kitchen, her kingdom, where she felt most herself. "There's something I want to show you," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box. She already wore his ring. Something else. Inside was a key, old and ornate. "To the villa," Marco explained. "I'm having it renovated. A proper home for us, not just a weekend escape. I want to wake up with you there every morning, watch you cook in that kitchen, build a life in a place that's ours." Tears pricked Harper's eyes. "Marco, and there's something else." He placed his hand over her stomach, his touch gentle. "I want to fill that villa with children, our children, a family built on something real, not the violence and fear I grew up with." Harper covered his hand with hers, her heart so full it ached. "I want that too." His kiss was tender, a promise of futures yet to come. When they finally left the restaurant, stepping into the cool night air where Franco waited with the car, Harper looked back at the sign glowing in the darkness. Harper's, her dream, realized. Her life transformed. All because one man had looked across a crowded ballroom and decided she was worth noticing. Worth everything. As they drove through the city, their city now, Marco's arms wrapped around her, Harper thought about fate and choices and the dangerous beauty of surrender. She'd been invisible once, ignored, overlooked, never again. Now she was Harper Clark, soon to be Harper DeLuca, owner of the city's newest acclaimed restaurant, partner to its most dangerous man, and she wouldn't change a single moment of the journey that had brought her here. Even the fear, the danger, the impossible choices, all of it had led to this, to him, to a love that was possessive and protective and absolutely, terrifyingly real. Marco's hand moved to rest possessively over her stomach again, and Harper wondered if he somehow knew what she'd only just begun to suspect, that their family might be starting sooner than either of them planned. But that was a revelation for another night. Tonight was for celebrating everything they'd already built together, and dreaming of everything still to come. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.